every time that you kiss me, my heart skips a beat or two. Because baby, I still got a crush on you. Come on now.
Okay, so Mikey called and he wants me to tell you our how we met story through the first year.
Hello. You'll never guess what room in the house that I'm in. I'm in the bathroom. No, I'm not doing anything other than talking to y'all, but when my wife recorded her side of the story, it was just her at the house by herself. I just got home from work and she's in the other room and we're supposed to be doing this separately, so this is about the only other room in the house with good lighting and good sound. So now it's me and you here. I just got home from work, like I said, having a beer. And I'm going to tell you the true story of how we met in our first year together.
So I have to leave soon to go pick up Miss Ad from school. So I need to get a recipe cooking before then so that I can have something to put up on the blog next week. So I thought I would cook while I talk and tell you the story about when I met the Mikey. I've got to back up the camera now so that you can actually see me over there. Actually, I'm going to move over there and then see if you can see me.
Started way back in the late summer, early fall of 1996. I was going into my sophomore year of college, and I was involved in one of the campus ministries at Indiana State University.
I think when we tell the story, we usually tell it from the standpoint of we definitely could not stand each other when we first met.
I didn't like her and she didn't like me. I always tell everybody that she didn't like me because I was what she calls a player.
I started to get to know him mainly because I started knowing girls who were all dating him like at the same time, which I thought was like utterly ridiculous and didn't keep that thought to myself when I would talk to him.
I didn't like her because I thought she was nosy.
He thought I was really bossy, which, hey, I never hid who I was. So
I'm sure she might have told you the story about the play. I don't know, but if not, I'll tell you.
And then I found out one night that he actually, I think it was on the same night, took two different girls to the same play.
I took one girl on Tuesday night and I took another girl on Thursday night.
I was like, I think it's ridiculous.
She just thought that was atrocious.
Like, went to the first showing with one girl and took her home and then went and got another girl and I just thought it was ridiculous.
And it was a really good play.
I thought, dude, you know, that's just not cool.
I just thought it was atrocious that she thought that it was atrocious for me to take a couple of girls to a really good play.
He didn't like that I spoke my mind and I wasn't fawning over him like a lot of others were.
Fast forward a few weeks later, and we got to be good friends.
So anyhow, we ended up becoming pretty good friends despite the fact that we had a lot of banter back and forth, which has pretty much been our life, is the banter back and forth. We started like kind of hanging out, and I can remember these really long talks we would have in his car. He had this huge, like, retired police car, you know, the kind of vehicles that sometimes they say serial killers drive. Anyhow, he had this massive, like, tank of a car. He and I would go, like, to either events together, you know, as friends.
The more we talked, the more we realized we had a lot in common with one another.
He was still dating all these girls, and we would go to events and, you know, just hang out and talk, and then afterwards we would just spend hours talking. And I can remember when I first started falling for him, is when he started talking about his mom.
My mom loved to cook. Her mom loved to cook. Her mom was at the time a professional baker, and when she was growing up anyway, and still a really good cook. I love her mom to death. My mom's the same way, just a really good cook.
And ironically, it was about her cooking, which is hilarious considering where we are today and that we cook for a living. When he would talk about his mom, he clearly felt about his parents, and specifically when he would talk about his mom, the way that I felt about my mom and dad.
Both fathers hardworking. We grow up with the same work ethic.
It just kind of made me, it made me feel like home. It made me realize that we had a lot in common.
The more we talked, the more we realized we had a lot in common with one another.
And then the other piece in all those conversations was, I didn't ever feel like he wanted me to be somebody else. He wanted me to be me around him.
She was honest. She was somebody who you could just tell demanded respect. And if you didn't want to respect her, hit the highway. And I respected that about her.
I just never found somebody interested in really getting to know me the way he was trying to, he really liked the person I was without me trying to figure out what he wanted me to be, I guess is the weird thing.
And I really, really got to know her well, and she got to know me well, and I just realized then that that's the kind of gal I wanted to hang out with. That's the kind of girl I wanted to be my girlfriend.
So then that takes us to our first, when we decided to be boyfriend, girlfriend, I think. It's been a long time, guys. I may have some of this out of order, and I'm sure he'll be pointing it out. Anyhow, at one point we went on a retreat with the campus ministry, and we spent a lot of time talking, and I think that's when we really started saying, okay, he might be somebody I'd be interested in dating with.
She was really into me.
But at the same time, I was very clear with the boy that I had no interest in being one of his many women. And so I think he was going to have a come to Jesus moment, so to speak, in which he was going to have to decide whether he wanted to date all those girls he was dating or whether he wanted to date me, because it wasn't going to be both.
That's what it was. She was really into me.
We were back at college after the retreat, and there was a bonfire one night, and we went to it with some friends, and we ended up talking late that day, and we ended up staying up all night talking. And we really were talking, for all of you who might think otherwise.
We ended up talking the whole time.
We were in the car talking so much so that the campus police came up and knocked on the window to make sure I was okay.
And we sat in the parking lot. In fact, we were out there so late that the campus police showed up and checked on her to make sure that she was okay with this guy that she was with out in the parking lot all night.
In the serial killer mobile.
And, we assured him that everything was fine. We were just sitting there talking.
We stayed up, we talked.
And talked and talked and talked all night.
Until the point where he looks at me and says the most romantic words ever. He says
that I was scared of her.
I'm not sure I fully knew how to take to begin with.
And what I meant by that was that I never met a girl that I had liked like I did her.
But what he was trying to say to me was that he was scared of that, what we were, the road we were venturing down was not your typical dating relationship. We kind of really started to realize, hey, this guy's, I think this might be the one.
I thought, man, I've got to be with a girl like that.
Then we ended up deciding we were going to go watch the sunrise at a golf course. I'm not really sure why.
And I said, hey, I want to show you something real quick. So we took off from the parking lot and drove to the nearest golf course, which is about 5 miles away. And we pulled in, and over the ridge of hills, you could see the sunrise.
A golf course.
And that was my smooth move,
It might have had a good view or something. And so we drove out, we watched the sunrise, and then that was that. He told me at the time.
On the way back to the dorm, I said, now listen, if you want to date somebody, if there's other guys that you want to see, you want to hang out with, I totally get it. And I was thinking at the time, like, man, I hear I've got all these girls that might be interested in me, and I know I might have just committed to one, and I've already had cold feet. This is like 5 minutes into our relationship. She's like, buddy. She's like, if you're going to be with me, you're going to be with me, and I'm going to be with you.
Because of my girl rule.
And so we decided right then we were going to be boyfriend and girlfriend.
That he did the next day, he had to go break some news to a couple girls that he would no longer be dating them, and I was like, okay, that's good. And so he did that, and then we started dating. Our first date was
at the Holman Center, which is a huge arena where Indiana State plays basketball. They also hold concerts and stuff like that there. And that's where I worked, running lights and sound and stuff like that.
He worked as like a maintenance person for like events. So he kind of ran and did whatever they needed done. But that also meant he got the perk of, like, if there was a meal at the event, the staff got to eat.
My boss at the time, Rusty, he said, if you want to bring a date, go ahead. So, of course, I brought Chris and she came. And
so he brought his girlfriend along.
I was working this huge dinner. It was a giant prime rib dinner for hundreds of people. And one of the perks of the job, other than getting paid, was we got to eat as well. So here I was, poor college student, eating a prime rib dinner, baked potato, you name it, they had it.
He fed me the meal from the event that night, which was, I think it was prime rib. So he was like stoked. Hey, we were poor college kids. I wasn't like, I didn't think anything was wrong with it.
My first dinner out with my girl was prime rib, of course. Of course, it was free, so I couldn't pass that up.
And I remember as we were walking out that night, there was a dance floor and there was a song and they were playing Pretty Woman, and he was like being Mikey and singing along and being silly. And so that was kind of the beginning of things. Now, our first official date, I think, was probably the next day or that weekend.
Next night, we went to the spaghetti factory there in town, or spaghetti shop. I can't remember what it was called.
He took me to the spaghetti shop, which was the local version of like a Fazoli's. It was like a quick Italian place.
Really cool Italian joint there in Terre Haute, and took her on the first date that I paid for. I think I spent about $15, so not bad for a second date.
And I don't know if we went and saw a movie or not. Honestly, I can't really remember. It's been a really long time. We're getting old.
And then just like any relationship, we got to know each other even better. I ended up falling in love with her.
We started dating, pretty much became inseparable at that point. Spent, visited each other's family, got to know, pretty much he came down for part of our Christmas stuff and probably Thanksgiving stuff. I'm not sure. I'm having a hard time remembering. The first year's hard to remember. What he really wants me to talk about is when I broke his heart or broke up with him, and he makes such a big deal about that. So probably, it was right before finals, because he makes a big deal about that too.
And then right before Christmas, during finals of that same semester, she dumped me. Yep.
Right before finals, I was just having this moment, this like, oh my goodness moment of, I'm a freshman in college. I've got this, plan of how I'm going to graduate. And I was a first generation college student, first person in my family to attend college. And so I was scared that, I don't need a boy distracting me. I need to, focus. And my parents weren't pressuring me. It was just me kind of going, I knew he was going to be, like, there was no just dating him. Like, he was going to be my soulmate, my life partner. And I wasn't so sure that I was ready for that because I was young. And so
she dumped me. She's like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. I don't know what's going on here, but I feel like I need some time apart.
I decided I was going to break up with him.
And it crushed me.
And that was going to make me feel better about being scared. And so I guess what I could say back to him is I was scared of him, and that's why I broke up with him. So if he can be scared, I was scared too. And so I was scared of him. Anyhow, the breakup didn't last even, I don't think it actually even lasted 24 hours.
It took her all of 24 hours to change her mind.
Because I stayed up all night that night. I broke up with him and just bawled my eyes out.
It was late that night that she broke up with me, and I went to bed, and I got a phone call just a couple hours later, and Harry, I'm passed out in the bed, and she called me.
And I called my mom as soon as it was morning, like as soon as she would be up, bawling my eyes out on the phone, and just told her. And I literally said to her, I want to talk to my best friend, and I can't because I just broke up with him. And, you know, Mom just was like encouraging on the phone and everything. But then I hung up from the phone with Mom, and I just decided to just call him. And so I called him, and by some miracle, he answered the phone.
And she said, can I come down? And I was like, yeah, go ahead. So she comes down.
He came right away. He came upstairs right away.
And she comes to the door crying, and she says, the worst part about breaking up with you is I needed to tell somebody about it. And when I realized who my best friend was, that was you.
And we started talking, but it wasn't like we're getting back together kind of thing. That, you know, was like 12 hours later.
You know, I was still pretty upset about it, but I'm like, I get it. You know, we ended up going our separate ways that day. And then that night, I'm up there doing my laundry in our little lounge area, and she comes in there.
He came right away and said, you know, he wanted to talk it out because he wanted to know what was going on. And pretty much we decided that if we, after talking, and I mean, just the fact that the dude was showing up for me after I broke up with him was a big thing.
She said that, you know, she made a mistake. Of course she did. And that she wanted to get back together.
But we started talking, and it was pretty much laid out. Like,
I told her, lay down the law. I said, lady, I'm not playing these games. If you want to be with me, you're going to be with me. If you don't, that's fine. We go our separate ways. But this is not a game.
I'm not going to play this. He was very firm in saying, I'm not going to play this game.
Yeah, I laid down the law with her. About the only time I ever did that.
Like, if you want to be together, then we're making a decision that we're going to stay together. Like, forever. We just decided that was that. And I made him a sandwich, which he'll talk about. I think it was a honey loaf sandwich.
And she feeds me a honey loaf sandwich. And that was her olive branch.
I made him a sandwich. We talked it over, and we decided we were going to get back together. But that was all with knowing that there's no more decision to be made. This is it.
And so from then on, we were together. That January, I told her I wanted to marry her.
Not that we were getting married the next day, but that this is it. We're in this relationship for the long haul because we can't handle this breaking up thing. We can't even last 24 hours. So anyhow, we ended up getting back together, and we've been together ever since. And so by that February, we were what was called pre-engaged, which is something that is a bit of a tradition in my family. And then by that summer, we were officially engaged.
In fact, it was in July, I believe. And she was on summer break. Yeah, we were on summer break, and she was living back home with her mom and dad down in Paoli, which is about a 2-hour drive from where I was living. And I went down to see her, and I asked her to look in my glove box for something, and she looked in there, and there was a note written on a napkin that said, "Will you marry me?" And the ring was right there. I got down on my knees in her dad's gravel driveway, and I put the ring on her finger, and that was the end of that.
And then by the next summer, we were married. And so he's been turning my world upside down ever since. So I don't know I don't know if there's anything else from that first year.
One of our first pet nicknames was, she called me her Snuggle Bunny.
But anyhow, so after, there is a part that I think happened in the first year, but I think that's a vlog in and of itself. And that's when he threw a fit about a hamburger. that I made him because it wasn't like his mom's. But that might just have to wait to some other time. So, well, my stuff is a-crockin'. I've told my love story, so we'll see what he says. Because we're doing a little he said, she said. And we'll see what he said.
She can't live without me.
And we'll see how that turns out.
Of course, I know I couldn't live without her all along.
So I'm not fully sure. He's really excited to tell his side of the story. So I'm kind of curious as to what he's going to, what things he thinks he has on me to tell.
Our first kiss was awkward because she was nervous. I calmed her down right away. Yeah, turns out she's a real good kisser.
But anyhow, so that's my side of the story.
So that's the story of when we first got together. You got any questions about us? Leave it down in the comments down below. We'll maybe pick a few and answer some questions. Maybe do another vlog answering your questions about me and Chris. That's all I got. Oh, wrong button. Oh, there it is.
I guess I can just shut this off, I guess. Go.
I'm so glad you're mine.